The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports. You are Locked On Hurricanes Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Miami on the Locked On Podcast Network.
What a game played by the Miami Hurricanes tonight. What a win, the biggest win we've had in over 20 years. Go into Dallas and defeat the Ohio State Buckeyes, the defending national champion, number 2 in the country, Ohio State Buckeyes, and a huge, huge win for the Miami Hurricanes as they move on into the next round of the playoffs. That's right, with a 24-14 win over Ohio State. It got a little dicey in that fourth quarter. Ohio State proving how good they are, running the ball down the field and Sayans making throws. But when the defense needed a big stop, they got it. And when the offense got the ball back with 5:56 left in the game, Carson Beck led them on the drive that closed it out. Carson Beck led them on the drive that sucked the life out of Ohio State and all their fans. And, of course, killed that game clock. And then Marty Brown coming in cold off the bench to just ice it. What a win for Miami. It's not just the win that they got. It's the way that they did it, guys. It's the way they came out and they smacked Ohio State in the mouth from the jump. And, man, if you listen to Dono and I earlier today when we did our pregame, I actually said 24-10 Miami. It's 24-14. I said 24-10 Miami. You can go back and you can watch it. And I said Carson Beck would make the plays that would win them the game, and he did. He made just enough big plays, no negative plays from Beck tonight. How about Beck lowering the shoulder, picking up a couple of first downs, running the football? Malachi Toney did not have a good game at all. A couple of fumbles, got lucky to recover them, but he had 2 huge blocks on that final drive as Mark Fletcher Jr. and Marty Brown put the game away from Miami. And you heard me say it to Alex in the show that we did to preview this game, that Miami's better than Ohio State on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I said it. I'll play it 100 times because I was right. They absolutely dominated up front tonight. Ohio State had those scoring drives in the second half that obviously they played pretty well offensively. That last drive of the second quarter where they missed the field goal, and then the 2 long touchdown drives, right? And you're thinking, wow, Miami's not getting much going. They missed an obvious pass interference call on C.J. Daniels late in this game that actually could have put the game away a lot sooner for Miami. But what a win for the Hurricanes. We're here to break it all down on your postcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the number 1 sports podcast network in the world. And of course, Locked On Canes is the number 10 channel on a network of 220 plus shows, the hard work of one Alex Dono over the years. And tonight's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern with FanDuel. You see it along the side there, the fantastic finish, the defensive stop, and then the drive, the Carson Beck drive, when Carson Beck really became a Miami Hurricane, when Carson Beck put his name into the history books at the University of Miami with the second straight playoff win. Look at this, right? No double-digit seed had won a playoff game before this year, and now we've won 2 in a row, taking out Texas A&M and Ohio State back-to-back. We get the winner of Georgia and Ole Miss. We'll all be watching that game tomorrow, and that game will be in the Fiesta Bowl in Arizona. So they take out the Buckeyes this week. Now a chance to come back to Glendale, Arizona, and right some wrongs and make some history there. So all kinds of things happening here on your Canes Postcast. What an intro segment this is. The fantastic finish, the closeout from Carson Beck, and the offense. They dominate the line of scrimmage. They outrush Ohio State. Ohio State at -3 rushing yards at halftime. Texas A&M, very similar last week. Man, our defense is good. Our defense is so good. That pass rush, the defensive backs. How about Bain and Mesidor just owning Ohio State up front tonight, man? What a beautiful win for your Miami Hurricanes. Normally I do this about a minute in, and I've already hit a bunch of the talking points, but let's get it rolling with your Canes Postcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is what you'll be talking about.
We are talking about utter and complete domination from the Miami Hurricanes. We're going to give you some numbers in just a moment. But again, Miami with the 24-14 win over Ohio State. And that was just unbelievable, right? Miami came out and hit Ohio State in the mouth from the beginning. That offensive line, that defensive line from the start, they couldn't run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. They couldn't get the ball outside to their weapons. They were hitting sand all over the place. And how about Keontae Scott with the pick six, baby? What a play by him. Jumps that wide receiver screen and gone, baby. Just gone to the house. And that was a huge play in the game. Obviously, the defensive score, you remember, Alex said it. And I know all you guys watched our pre-show, right? Alex Dono and me. And Alex said this. He said, look, we're going to have to score one on defense or special teams to beat Ohio State. And yeah, we didn't need necessarily that defensive touchdown because you won by 10 and that's 7 points. But man, Keontae Scott making a profit out of Alex Dono. And I said today, again, I love it when I'm right, and I'll say it again. And you guys gave me a lot of crap after the last show. The Texas A&M game, the win game, Beck was all over the field, didn't make any plays for Miami really in that game. The defense bailed him out in the run game. And, tonight was kind of looking the same way, but I got to give it to Carson Beck tonight, man. He made big throws on conversions. He made big runs on conversions. He lowered the shoulder, John Elway style, to pick up a first down. And, I have to give it to him. Did he set the world on fire? No, but I love the way they came out throwing to Daniels with Tony being double covered so often. But Beck made the plays he needed to make tonight. He was a great game manager. He made the plays when he had to. So I have nothing negative to say about Beck at all tonight. Nothing negative really to say about Dawson in this game. And Dawson and Patricia was the real matchup coming into this game. And, you're like Ryan Day against Heatherman, and that was the chess match all night. But I thought Shannon Dawson held his own against a great coordinator in Patricia, and the Miami Hurricanes just, again, flashed that talent. And when I've been hard on this team, when I've been hard on Mario and Shannon Dawson and Carson Beck, it's because they're that special. They have so much talent to beat Notre Dame the way they did. And Notre Dame and Texas should have been in the playoffs. Hell out of here with this James Madison and Tulane crap, man. Can you imagine if Texas was in the playoffs along with Notre Dame? It's still funny that Notre Dame is not, but it would have been a chance to beat them again, right? So all those people who thought Miami shouldn't have made the playoffs, they don't belong there, they don't deserve it. Clearly, talent-wise, we've proven that we belong. Losing those 2 out of 3 and losing to Louisville and SMU, those were bad losses, right? And I was the first one to say, and had they kept us out, we would have deserved for that to be our fate. But again, Notre Dame did too because they lost those games, and we beat them. Texas A&M beat them. We beat Texas A&M. Now we vanquish Ohio State. The number 2 seed is gone. They lost their conference tournament or conference championship game rather to Indiana 13-10. They didn't score in the second half of that game. Miami's defense just owning Ohio State up front tonight. And credit to the Buckeyes, man, and credit to Coach Day. They came out smash mouth in the second half with -3 yards rushing in the first half. For Ohio State, are you kidding me? When's the last time you saw the Suckeyes dominated like that? And by the way, I want a bunch of people here tonight, but I will not have anything negative to say about anybody tonight. They played their asses off. They balled out. Every drop of energy was spent on every single play by every single guy on that field tonight. And I could not be more proud of this team for what they've done, all these wins in a row after they lost 2 out of 3. Look, they should have never lost to Louisville or SMU. They should be undefeated. They should roll all the way to the chip. That's how I've seen this team. The talent that they have is that level. Carson Beck, the most experienced quarterback left in the playoffs. You knew that he would be on point tonight. You knew he'd be sharp. The weather, not a factor, and you just know they go back to Dallas and get a win, right? They go back to Dallas in a place where they lost earlier this year to SMU, and they get that win. So the ACC, people saying the ACC didn't deserve a team, and you know how I feel about the ACC. I mean, it doesn't even matter if you're winning the conference or not. But I will tell you this, Miami dominated that first half. In the second half, Ohio State really came roaring back on them. But I will say this, how about Miami holding Ohio State to 45 rushing yards? 1.9 yards per carry for the mighty Buckeyes of the mighty Big Ten. Yeah, GTFOH, if you know what I'm saying. And look, it was a clean game. Only 2 penalties on Ohio State the whole game. None on Miami. No penalties on the Hurricanes. And by the way, they missed a huge pass interference call on CJ Daniels that would have set us up for an earlier touchdown. But, we won the turnover battle 2-1. It helped that Malachi Toney recovered 2 of his own fumbles. Look, if Fletch doesn't fumble in the red zone on that second drive of the game, we blow them out. If you're nitpicking, there were a couple of plays in this game that didn't go our way, and that was a big one for Fletcher Jr., who came back and balled out in this game. And I would love to have seen him get the touchdown that put it away, but how about Marty Brown just coming in to ice it, man? Coming in cold off the bench with a big catch and a couple of big runs on that final drive, spelling Fletcher Jr., who popped out of the game, man. And, you look at Carson Beck in this game tonight, he didn't have a big game, right? Didn't have the huge numbers, and we've kind of gotten used to that from Beck in this offense. You know what I'm saying? And when you think about what Carson Beck was able to do in closing out this game, look, it wasn't about the numbers for him tonight. He had 138 yards passing, 19 of 26, the touchdown, no picks, wasn't taking sacks. Really alert out there on the checkdowns and running for a couple of big gains, including a couple of first downs, a big one on that last drive. Malachi Toney, 1 carry for 4 yards and 5 catches for 16 yards. They bottled him up. But how about CJ Daniels, 5 for 49? Keelan Marion, 5 for 36. And just a beautiful, beautiful job. Fletcher with the touchdown reception in this game had 19 carries for 90 yards, including a couple big runs on that last drive, right? 4.7 per carry. Marty Brown, 5 for 26, 5.2 per carry, all on that last drive that put this game away. And the 14-point second quarter for Miami was huge in this game, as well as they kept knocking Ohio State off the field in that first half. The Buckeye offense couldn't get anything going whatsoever. All right, 24-14 the final. On to the next one. And that will be Georgia or Ole Miss at the Fiesta Bowl in Glendale, Arizona on January 8th, a week from tomorrow. We're celebrating New Year's Eve in Miami with a big win for the Hurricanes in the playoffs. 2-0 now, Miami in the playoffs. They knock off number 2 Ohio State, the defending national champs. We're looking to win back-to-back titles for the first time in school history. And so sorry, suck guys. It is not going to happen. Still to come, we're going to take you through all the numbers, the team stats, the player stats, drive by drive, talk a little bit more about the key plays and players in this game who made it happen for Miami tonight. They played like the old school Miami Hurricanes, Yeah, HSBD. If you know what that stands for, you're a true Canes fan. HSBD. Anybody know? Throw it in the chat. You ask Ray Lewis, he'll tell you. You ask Rohan Marley, he'll tell you. You know what I'm saying? You ask Warren Sapp, you ask any of those guys, they will tell you what HSBD means. And that's what they did all over that field to the Ohio State Buckeyes tonight. I am Jim Greasehaber. Call me Grease. Class of 96, baby. Proud of our alma mater and our team tonight for the way that they played. And as much as I've gotten on Dawson and Cristobal this year at times, and they've deserved it, right? But they had this team ready to play tonight. Heatherman, they had this team ready to play tonight. They were fired up from the beginning of the game, tired of hearing about Ohio State and how good and how great. And with all those legends in the house, and with the history of Miami and Ohio State that the Canes, by the way, 3-2 all-time series leading Ohio State now, you knew they were going to come out and crush tonight.
NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
Ohio State season came to an abrupt stop in the Cotton Bowl, losing a physical battle to Miami that defined the night.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes.
This was not the show we all planned to have on New Year's Eve after the Cotton Bowl ended. It was expected by many of us around here that Ohio State was going to go into Arlington, Texas, and leave victorious. But The Buckeyes enter the game with a different offensive line. The Buckeyes enter the game with a different offensive play caller. The Buckeyes enter the game with a long layoff. And it seemed like all of those things were a recipe that Miami leaned into, and they found a way to take advantage of some of the things that were new for Ohio State in this game. They went in the game leaning on a kicker that has showed us sometimes in big moments he is not the most capable kicker, but like I said previously, you're not going to put somebody new in this game that has not kicked before, so it made sense why Jaden Fielding kicked tonight. What didn't make sense was the way that the Buckeyes lost the fight to Miami. Yes, all week, the conversation was surrounding the Buckeyes' O-line versus Miami's D-line. The conversation was the Buckeyes' D-line versus Miami's O-line. And in reality, the Buckeyes weren't ready for that kind of fight. And that's not something that I thought we were going to be able to say. We would be saying after this game. You thought the physicality of the front that you had seen throughout the year on the D-line would show up in a big way. You thought the offensive line, while it did have a new starter tonight in Gabe Van Sickle, you thought that would have showed up and wouldn't have been as big of a hole as it was. The Buckeyes lost a fight, a rock fight, a fight that from the jump you realized they were not up to the task of being able to handle this one. I mean, you tell me what you saw in the first quarter or on the first drive or early in the game. You tell me what you saw. What did your eyeball see? Let me know in the YouTube comment section of this video, because I'm very curious if what I saw was the same thing you saw, because if that's the same thing, if we're seeing eye to eye right now, this can't happen again. Now, I'm not saying you're going to be perfect, but you can't be so overmatched in a football game that when it comes to being the more physical team, you don't stand a chance. Yeah, the numbers tell a picture, a story about this game, but the big story to me is the Buckeyes weren't physically ready for battle. That's where you stop the conversation. Who was more physically ready for battle right now? It was Miami. Up front on the D-line and on the O-line, Ohio State had no answer for the Miami's D-line. No answer at all. I mean, I don't remember how many times I was watching the game and I was trying to count and lost count of the number of Buckeye offensive linemen that got beat. I mean, Saraville got beat. Montgomery got beat. Hinsman got beat. Phillip Daniels got beat late in the game. They called a holding when there wasn't a holding call on that one. They missed some ones earlier in the game, and I understand why the rest chose to not call some calls that are pretty obvious because they let the guys play. In passing plays, they let guys get handsy. They let guys get physical. They weren't calling anything. It truly felt like it was officiated like a playoff game, and I appreciate that from the officiating crew. Yeah, it is a little bit annoying at times when some calls are missed, but you want a playoff game to be officiated like a playoff game. And so when Phillip Daniels got beat late in the game and they called a holding, there wasn't a holding. Homie just got beat. Gabe Van Sickle got beat. It doesn't matter who was there on the O-line. Bo Jackson got beat. I mean, everybody got beat. They had no answer at all. And early in the game, when you realize they had no answer, Ryan Day's also trying to fill this thing out and get back into the groove of play calling because he hasn't done this in a couple of years. And you saw when Ryan Day got into a groove in play calling, things started to be a little bit different. The Buckeyes started to get into a rhythm, a great mix of rush and pass, but it was almost too little too late. If that rhythm would have come earlier in the first half, I'm not saying the Buckeyes would have won the game because they were clearly overmatched in the trench area, but the margin of defeat may have been a little bit closer. I mean, Vegas saying the Buckeyes FanDuel was saying Ohio State was favored -9.5. Clearly that wasn't the case with the outcome of this game. This isn't how you want the season to end at all. But was this preventable? I don't have an answer for that. In-season answer. I have an all-season conversation in a way that could have been preventable, but that's something we will be having to discuss over the next few weeks and months because you're playing a football game where it's a do-or-die situation, and sometimes the coaches aren't coaching in a do-or-die mode. And to me, it's a problem. To me, if you're not coaching in a do-or-die with a do-or-die thought in your mind, you're not coaching the way that you should be coaching. Defensively, Carson Beck, after a few miscues early in the game where he was just making some passes that were really silly and stupid, he settled in. He started to make some plays with his legs. He extended plays. Yeah, his passing yardage wasn't high. His Completion percentage is about where it normally is going to be at 73%. He threw a touchdown pass, which was a timely one. His ability to extend plays and to get positive yardage and to turn third and a loss of 2 into being a first down over and over and over again was a problem. Yeah, I did like at times when the Buckeyes decided to change instead of going from the bare front that they have used a lot this season to go to some odd fronts and even fronts to change things up. So the Hurricane offensive line could not walk the line of scrimmage and quickly look and say, oh, this is how we're going to defend this or how we're going to block this. They changed things up pretty quickly. Sand didn't have any time at all. And when he did have time, and when he did make some good passes, he still had to move around in the pocket and get a good feel of the rush because it was coming quick, fast, and in a hurry. And it makes you wonder if the layoff was truly the problem. I don't think that was the overarching problem. I think it was a problem. I would not put the problem on the layoff itself because going into it, you've earned a bye. Ryan Day said the team wants a bye. You got what you wanted. You got a venue that you're very familiar with it being the third year in a row the Buckeyes have played in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. You got a team that you have some history with, that you want to prove once again that you can beat them in the postseason. You got some things that you wanted. Nah, you didn't want Tegra to be hurt. You didn't want Lorenzo Styles to go down. You didn't want some of those things to happen, but you got everything you wanted. And at the end of the day, the Buckeyes were not the more physical team. I don't think they were the more prepared team. I don't think they were the better coach team throughout all four quarters of this game, which is not something you would expect to say in this game on the last day of 2025, but that's where we are right now. Ohio State lost a fight to Miami, a 24-14 loss, and it abruptly stopped the Buckeye season, a season where the Buckeyes are trying to attack a natty and win back-to-back national championships for the first time in program history, and that is not going to happen.
We've talked about how Georgia should crush Ole Miss, but wait, there's bad news.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs.
Both Clint and I told you that you should lay those dadgum points.
Yes, sir.
With the Georgia Bulldogs, 6.5 is not enough points, Clint. I told you to take an alt line. I said I like a 20.5 at plus 400 on FanDuel. Guess what? Since I told you that,
what happened?
that number's the juice has gone down a little bit on that number. So it behooves you to
get in,
pay attention early, listen all the way to the third segment, and get on in there. So both Clint and I, putting our money where our mouth is, we both think Georgia's going to win this game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons for Georgia fans to be excited, but there's also, if you've been with us for a while, if you're not new to the program, by the way, if you are new to the program, welcome. Glad you're here. He's Clint. I'm Daniel. We're Locked On Bulldogs. We do this daggum thing every single day. It's what we do. We're Georgia fans.
In the first 5 minutes, Daniel has been.
I'm feeling loose tonight. I'm ready to listen. Some days feel like third segment days, and this is that type of day. All right.
I do know.
December the 31st, 2025, about to be right behind us. And 2026 is coming. Georgia's still playing football. We're excited about it. A lot to be excited about, but also a lot to be nervous about. A lot maybe that you're not thinking about. Let's start at the beginning, though, Clint. What should Georgia fans be excited about if you were to pigeonhole it down to just one thing? What are you most excited about 8 o'clock Eastern time? New Orleans, Louisiana, the Mercedes Superdome, Georgia Ole Miss. What are you most excited to see?
Daniel, it's kind of funny. New Orleans was an appropriate place for this game to happen last year for us. You and I in the building.
We saw some of the 199 in the building.
Which was
when I was enjoying myself.
That's before kick. Mind you.
After kick, the 199 had the presence of mind not to engage.
They knew to stay away. They've listened to the podcast well enough to say we don't want to add some igniter fluid on that. But if we're being honest, Daniel, you and I walking into that game, traveling down there, it was a long season with that team. It was a hard fought long season. Didn't feel good necessarily coming into that game. And we kind of felt much like a New Orleans funeral.
There you go.
It felt like we were putting on brave faces. Let's have a little upbeat music. Let's have a little, let's paint it on like we're clowns. Let's go win this thing. But the whole time we said, let's go win this thing, we cringed because we knew it wasn't going to be, it was going to have to take the ball bouncing a few different ways for us. Daniel, that's not the feeling I have this year. Look, if I'm talking about the excitement level of this game, it's because Kirby Smart is 4-0 in rematches the year that he plays a team. Of those 4-0 times, three of them were for significant trophies, significant wins. Those times that he rematched the same team that he played that year in 4-0 games, there's nearly a 2-touchdown swing in point differential of the second game. The Georgia defense is now ranked 3rd and 7th nationally. And if you keep using, Chris Marler, I'm looking at you. You keep using Georgia statistics year long for the Georgia defense, you've missed the point entirely of who this defense is. Sure. It's just short-sighted. We love you,
just
Marler.
tell me you're ignorant and save us all the trouble.
Gunnar Stockton, Zachariah Branch, Colby Young, Nate Frazier, Chauncey Bowens, and some moron on the defensive line for Ole Miss talking about how Juan Gaston ain't nothing.
Just gums flapping, Clint.
Because this feels night and day difference from my anticipation and excitement of the confidence of this team leading into this game than I did a year ago at this exact same time, in this exact same location, in this exact same position. This Georgia team has me. Daniel and I work a lot of numbers and feels. We do both. We fan out, but we also are not ignorant in our fandom. We're homers, but we're not ignorant. Both our heads and hearts are telling us this is a team that's going to impress. And I'm most excited to watch all of those numbers come to a forefront with Kirby Smart to hold. What do you
Clint, I think I you. I love how you said that. The discrepancy between last year and this year could not be more night and day. Georgia, same record, same result. SEC champions.
Yep.
12-1 going into this game. But last year we saw it. We knew who this team was. And I'll be honest with you, early in this season, Clint, we saw and we knew who this team was. We knew it was fraudulent. We knew that the record early on was fraudulent. I'll be honest with you, after the Ole Miss game, we left the stadium. And what did I say to you, Clint?
You did.
I said, that team does not deserve to win that game. We were not the better team that day. Nope. We did not deserve to be in the position that we were in. But Georgia just kept winning, and now this Georgia team is a completely different team. The focus feels like it's there. The intensity feels like it's there. I'm excited to see if we're going to get a taste for blood, like a blood in the water type of Kirby Smart University of Georgia performance, where it's like, no, we're not trying to advance in this tournament. We're trying to absolutely demolish thinks that Pete Golding be an acceptable solution at coach for Ole Miss. What's Pete Golding's record in games where he rematches a school for the second time in a season? Oh, wait. No one's ever wanted to hire him ever in the history of his life as a head coach. And now here he is in the college football playoff against the greatest coach in college football, soon to be the greatest coach in college football history.
Here we go.
If he continues coaching. I'm excited to watch this Georgia team, which feels like Kirby's been describing them all year as an anaconda. Yeah. They just get you and they start to squeeze, and then all of a sudden it is over before it even started. I'm excited to watch this anaconda go to work against Ole Miss. I really don't think the Ole Miss defense has anything for this Georgia offense. I'm talking about anything for this Georgia offense. Go ahead.
The Ole Miss fan that's listening, you're counting on Ole Miss scoring a touchdown against this defense every drive that you have the ball.
You better do it.
I don't like those odds if I'm you.
How's
Georgia has to do two stops. Two stops because the Ole Miss defense. No, you are not it. You're not the one.
Check back with me in the Don't Sleep On segment because I got some. I'm going to name some names. If you can find some lines on some player props, now is the time.
NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
The Ravens and Steelers rivalry is still a rivalry, and the spicy talk has officially begun.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast.
Kevin, we meet again, my friend. And here we are. It's all on the line. This isn't, before a lot was on the line. Both teams were 6-6 when they met in Baltimore, and it was the Steelers were trending one way, the Ravens were trending the other, and then all of a sudden that game happened and it flipped. But then you go into last week, the Steelers just needed one thing to go their way. Ravens lose, Steelers win. Either one happens. This game doesn't matter. The AFC North clinched. And what happens? The Ravens walk into Lambeau and Derrick Henry bulldozes the Packers. The Steelers go into Cleveland. Their defense plays well, but their offense lays an egg. They lose, and here we are, Week 18 for all the marbles. Couldn't ask for anything better unless you're us who have to work until like 3 o'clock in the morning on Sunday night.
Yeah, this is actually Baltimore's third straight primetime game, third straight flexed game. So, I've definitely those late nights have been plenty for this team over the last handful of weeks, but Baltimore, as you mentioned, they took care of their business and got some help from Shedeur Sanders, Myles Garrett, and that Browns team to set up what I'm sure the NFL wanted all along, which is Ravens and Steelers for the division. And this, Chris, is usually, it is the time in the season, especially in a game like this with the magnitude and one win you're in, one loss you go home, where I always say in September, those September losses don't matter. But in December and January, they absolutely do. And you start to look back at some of those games that maybe you dropped by a touchdown or one play doesn't go your way, or you have a key turnover or miss late or you allow a score. And you're thinking, man, how different would this game be? What would the stakes be? Would there be any stakes if maybe the Steelers had picked up another game that they should have won, or the Ravens would have picked up another game they should have won? So it all comes down to this. And as Tyler Linderbaum said during his availability on Wednesday, the playoffs are already here. It's win or go home. So this is already Week 18. Both the Ravens and Steelers, they're playing playoff football right now.
Absolutely. It's win or go home. The winner gets the 4 seed in the AFC North crown. The loser sits home and watches the rest of the playoffs there. But let's look at one of the top storylines this week. And it's both the standings of these coaches. And both these coaches have been very parallel. Both took over, strong rosters when they got in. The John Harbaugh took over in 2008. Mike Tomlin took over in 2007. The Steelers were able to win a Super Bowl in 2008. John Harbaugh won a Super Bowl in 2012, right?
2012, 13,
yeah. I always mix up 12 and 13. But they both win a Super Bowl in their early years, and since then haven't really popped off. Now the Ravens, of course, have they've had Lamar Jackson. He's been a multi MVP. Maybe should have won a few more MVPs, but they've had their chances. The Steelers have, of course, been in the playoff rut that they've been. They still have never had a losing season, and if they win Sunday, it'll be their third straight season with at least 10 wins. And I think the fourth or fifth time they've done that this decade. But there's a narrative out there right now that both these coaches could be coaching for their jobs, Kevin. And there's been noise about firing Mike Tomlin since he took over the job in Pittsburgh. It's always been someone that said, oh, he didn't deserve it. And then when he won a Super Bowl, it was like, well, he did it with college players. And since then, it's been, every reason to try to discredit any success that he has. And here you are, of course, earlier this year when the Steelers got, beat up by the Bills, there were fire Mike Tomlin chants. And the first time that I've ever seen it in my time covering the team. And that kind of set a tone. That, of course, they responded to that with a 3-game win streak, and they got things going that kind of got them into the position that they're in now. But that's a storyline. Now, we'll talk about the likelihood of either happening, but it sounds like there's also some rumblings about, could John Harbaugh's job be on the line? And it makes you wonder, is this not just a loser go home, but a loser's coach lose your job type of situation?
Yeah, I think that these two teams are a lot more connected in this regard than maybe some people think, because I think a lot of the same mindset that Steelers fans have, Ravens fans have, and same thing, the mindset Ravens fans has, I think Steelers fans have that too. And I think the big story is that, look, these teams, the regular season success has been there for them for the majority. And of course, you mentioned the Steelers and the non-losing record, like that has been on full display in Pittsburgh since Mike Tomlin took over, and it's been very rare that John Harbaugh has had a losing season as well. But I think what both fan bases are feeling right now, especially after years where, for the Ravens, they were picked in the Super Bowl by a lot of people to be the Super Bowl champion, or at least be the AFC representative. And they started 1-5. They've had ups and downs. Obviously there's context where Lamar's been banged up all year. The O-line's been terrible, whatever. But essentially it's just like, how many times do you go back to the well of either not making the postseason, barely missing out, or losing in the wild card or divisional round? Because that's not the goal. The goal is not to make the playoffs and, hey, look at us, one of the top, 14 teams to make it, and then all of a sudden you're done and that's it. The goal is to hang banners, to get championships. And, while both these teams are Super Bowl winning coaches, John Harbaugh has 3 playoff wins over the last decade. And I mean, I guess that's better than, what the Steelers can say, especially recently. But
actually, who also has 3 playoff wins over the last decade? Because you have to include 2015. Yeah, they have the same amount of playoff wins.
But and then, even at least, recently, they're able to pick up a win against the Steelers last postseason. Yep. And then they're able to, they get like 1 win, and then it's all right, well, then you lose. And they haven't been able to get over that Kansas City hump, and Kansas City obviously not a factor this year. Buffalo doesn't look as strong as they have, but, neither does Baltimore. So it's going to be interesting, because I know Adam Schefter, one on the Pat McAfee show, and kind of was outlining some possibilities and things that he might think could happen with not just John Harbaugh, but Mike Tomlin as well. And one of the things that he talked about is that someone is going to lose the game. And when that happens, there are going to be conversations throughout the organization. And he said that he believes that both these coaches, for all that they've done and for all they've meant to the organizations and to the league, that they will have a big say, that it won't just be like the owners going to the coach and say, hey, you're done here. It might be more of a mutual, hey, how are you feeling? And maybe it would be Tomlin or Harbaugh that goes in there and says, it's been he said, quote, maybe they go in there and say, it's been a great run. Might be time to go try something else, whether that's TV or another job somewhere else, and that those things are possible in a wide range of possibilities. But, for either of these teams, whoever loses that game, and honestly, whoever wins it, and if they don't go far in the playoffs, there are going to be those conversations because, in Pittsburgh, obviously, they're trying to figure out a long-term answer at quarterback, but they have talent on that roster. For Baltimore, they have Lamar Jackson, and every year you don't win a Super Bowl is a year that you're wasting of his prime. And at that point, you just have to wonder, are Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh, who have had great careers, are they the coach to get their teams over that hump, or if they just plateaued out? And sometimes it doesn't mean that a guy is a bad coach and that he wouldn't have success elsewhere, but sometimes a team just needs a different voice or a different person in that role. And that might be what we're looking at here.
And so I think there's a lot of Steelers fans. Not a lot. I think there's a few loud Steelers fans. There's a lot of Steelers fans that appreciate Mike Tomlin and what he's been able to do. But I think that this is where there might be a difference in things. Now, I'll tell you this straight up. I have people on the team inside. People have told the Rooneys are not getting rid of Mike Tomlin. They're not going to fire him. He's never going to be kicked out of the organization. People that want that to happen, it's just not going to happen. It would have to be, like you said, a mutual agreement where Mike Tomlin says, hey, you know what? I'm okay stepping down, and because I feel like I've done enough here and I'm ready to move on with my life and do something else for a little bit or for however long, whatever. But Mike Tomlin is not getting fired, especially because, and I think the other thing here about the Steelers, and I don't know the contract history of John Harbaugh, but the Steelers signed Mike Tomlin to a 3-year contract extension in June of 24, so last year. And that was not with the thought that, oh, we're going to get rid of him in a couple of years if this doesn't turn around with old man Russell Wilson or old man Aaron Rodgers. They did that to give Mike Tomlin time to say, hey, we believe in you. We think you can keep this thing afloat. We think we can keep building. And we think that by the time we get to the next time we want to negotiate, then we can see, all right, have you rebuilt the trenches on both sides of the ball? Has there been a new nucleus? If not, you probably had a few losing seasons, and then we will say goodbye. But as of right now, Mike Tomlin has locked in another winning season, another season where he has that streak. And if he wins this game, it's his, I think, third straight year in the playoffs. So I think that the Steelers can kind of recognize, like, hey, this isn't the prime Lamar Jackson years. This isn't like he's wasting anyone's time. It's like, hey, a lot of people, we did our AFC North preview show. I think I was the only person that said that they would even finish in second in the division. A lot of people thought they were going to finish in last or third. And I was like, no, I think that they can at least get to number 2. And they've locked themselves in at least at number 2, or maybe even will win the division straight out based off of how this game goes. And I think that's the difference for what might be the tone with Mike Tomlin. The Steelers recognize, hey, people said the Steelers went all out. They stretched out no contract. They moved nobody's money at the end of the season. They didn't move any money down the line so that this contract, this roster could be loaded. Most of their free agents were guys that they signed late in free agency that couldn't impact their comp picks. This was a year where they said, hey, we're going to give it a shot with these guys that we're trying to do. But this was not a year where they were saying, hey, we're putting all our chips to the middle, because if it were, they would have kept Minkah Fitzpatrick when they added Jalen Ramsey. They would have kept George Pickens instead of trading away for a pick. And then they would have also signed a few more players. And they said, let's get a little more aggressive here and there. They didn't do those things. But what they have done is they said, hey, we're trying to rebuild a nucleus. We're trying to figure out a new way for this team to win moving forward.
NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
The Bucs and Panthers square off on Saturday with the fate of the NFC South hanging in the balance.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Julian, it feels like we just did this.
Yeah, because we did 2 weeks ago, and the stakes were still the same stakes, except not really, as the game on Saturday, depending on who wins, and if it's Tampa, we're going to have to wait until Sunday to find out who is actually going to win the NFC South between these two teams. So, yeah, having a ton of fun here the last couple of weeks in this whole roller coaster season for Carolina, while looking at Tampa and just wondering, why are you the way you are? Because you told me a couple weeks ago the 8-9 scenario where all three of Carolina, Atlanta, and Tampa could be 8-9. The Panthers would win in that scenario and go to the playoffs. I didn't want to buy into it because I did not want to believe that Tampa was capable of losing to a Quinn Ewers-led Miami Dolphins team. So I apologize to you, James Yarko, because I should have listened to you when you told me, oh, this Bucs team, yeah, they can lose that game. And damn it, did they lose that game on Sunday.
Yep, it was entertaining for everyone involved. But yeah, you just mentioned it. We know what's at stake here. The Panthers win, and they are the NFC South champions heading to the playoffs for the first time since 2017. Their first
or
division
tie.
But if they win, this is locked in. It's good to go. Their first division crown in a decade for the Bucks. It's whether or not they can finally snap this awful skid that they're on and make the postseason for the 6th consecutive year, making it the longest playoff streak of any team in the NFL, as well as winning their 5th straight division crown. Obviously, this is the biggest storyline for both of these teams. What is the feeling around the Carolina Panthers right now?
You would think after the game on Sunday, once they found out that the Bucks had lost, that those guys would think that they missed out on an opportunity and they'd be really kicking themselves, and it'd be kind of a sullen locker room atmosphere. That really was not the case. J.C. Horn, he said, wouldn't want it any other way than to have your division rival, a winner-take-all, well, they thought potentially winner-take-all game on Saturday coming up here against the Bucks. Like, that's just the way this team has been, where they're making it so much harder than it needs to be. Now, obviously, Sunday against Seattle was a missed opportunity, but that's a 13-3 Seattle Seahawks team. So not a team that Carolina really should have beaten. So I don't really look at it that way. The game they lost against New Orleans, where that locker room, they were depressed. Like, JC did not want to talk to the media. Mike Jackson didn't want to talk to the media because they felt like they had blown it. They didn't feel like they blew it on Sunday. So they were at least aware that Seattle, even with the turnovers, is a better team than them, but they knew what was right there in front of them. All right, you blew it against New Orleans. You blew it against Seattle. If you just win this game or tie, you're going to finally be in the playoffs for the first time in 8 years and be hosting a playoff game, winning division for the first time in a decade. So they are looking at the opportunity. They're excited about it, and they're not looking at their missed opportunities as, oh, man, we really blew it. They're ready for this one, and I think it should be a pretty solid game and effort from Carolina on Saturday.
Yeah, I would expect the same, and it's amazing to me that we're going to have a game after the Bucks Panthers that could decide the number 1 seed in the NFC, and both of those teams lost to Tampa. That's where we are right now. And so, yeah, the energy around the Bucks, Baker said the exact same thing. Wouldn't want it any other way. It's been the same cliches for the last 2 months. Our backs are against the wall. Every game's a playoff game. We don't need to worry about what Dave Canales and the Panthers are doing. We just have to worry about doing what we do. Yada, 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 yada. That battle cry has led to 7 losses in the last 8 weeks. So it's been more of the same there. And yeah, if the Panthers win or tie, they win the division, period. If the Bucks win, now you got to wait until Sunday to find out who is going to win this division, because the Falcons are going to Falcon and create chaos everywhere. And you and I were talking before the episode. It would be the most Buccaneers thing of all time for the Bucks to win on Saturday and then lose the division because the Falcons beat the Saints in the final week of the year, when that game doesn't really matter for either of them outside of Tyler Shuck potentially clinching the offensive rookie of the year over both Teterow and McMillan and Emeka Abuka. Obviously, Emeka's second half of the season led to much faith in the offensive rookie of the year voting, but yeah, that's where this is. This is a Buccaneers team that could have locked up the division a month ago, and instead are scratching and clawing and fighting to try to get in with a losing record. It's
it's wild to me, man, on like this side of it, because I keep looking, and what they've lost 8 out of 10, 7 out of 8. I just don't understand how. I get the injuries, but a team that has Baker Mayfield, who has been banged up, they get Mike Evans back. They just have, I still feel like, the most talent in this division, and they've allowed Carolina to come back to them. And now they're in a position where, like, I was actually looking at, because you talk about that game on Sunday, depending on the result on Saturday, it's possible that Tampa finishes 3rd in this division, which is just crazy that that's even a possibility. Like, looking at it, if Carolina wins and New Orleans wins, Tampa finishes 3rd. If Carolina wins and Atlanta wins, basically, if just Carolina wins, Tampa's going to finish in 3rd place in the division. And that's not a scenario that we would have thought going into the season. And certainly after the first 2 months of the season, hell, maybe a month ago, do we think that was going to happen? Maybe you thought that was happening. I certainly did not think that was going to be the case. And it's crazy that we've gotten there. And I've had friends who are longtime Panther fans, and one of them's just, I mean, he's a masochist. This dude still sits there and watches every single Hornets game. Like, we keep begging him, stop doing this to yourself. But he's the one saying, oh yeah, I'm fully prepared for maximum pain. Losing to Seattle when they could have won the division that game, then losing to Tampa, sitting there on Sunday begging for Atlanta to win, and then New Orleans taking the victory instead. So we'll see. I feel like it's going to come down to Sunday because neither one of these teams wants to win this division at this point. I think Carolina probably more than Tampa based off of their actions, but they've just been Jekyll Hyde for the last 8 weeks of the year, while Tampa very clearly, I don't know, maybe they just want to get to Cabo. I don't know what's going on with the Bucks, but yeah, fun times in the NFC South.
Well, and some of the glass half full Buccaneers fan optimists are like, okay, if this finishes out the way we think it's going to finish out, well, now the Bucks finally don't have a first place schedule. Finally, next year, maybe things will ease up a little bit for them. No, you want to know what third in the division gets them? It gets you the Commanders, it gets you the Rams, and it gets you the Kansas City Chiefs in the bonus game. Like, why? Why is this happening?
But will it get you a new head coach, James? Because you did tell me that you feel like no matter how this ends, Todd Bowles, you're out of here. And it just has gotten worse since our last conversation.
Well, you have Ian Rappaport spinning an opinion into a fact of, does this sound like a head coach that deserves to be fired? Jeremy Fowler comes out and he talks about how, the Bucks may not move on from Todd Bowles because it could signify an admitting that they need to rebuild, and maybe they don't, the ownership doesn't want to pay the buyout because Bowles just got an extension. To me, all of that is noise. I don't know how any ownership group of any professional sports team could look at the way that this season ended and say, yeah, we're going to give this guy one more shot. It just doesn't make any sense, but time will tell. The Glazer family will sit down with Jason Light after the season is officially complete. They'll evaluate everything and start to make some decisions. But again, this is an ownership group that fired Tony Dungy for not getting far enough in the playoffs. They fired John Gruden for a 4-game losing streak that led to them missing the postseason. How does losing 8 out of 9 get you to keep your job? I don't get it.
You tell me. We'll see. Yeah, I just kind of asked, like, what is Tampa building towards at this point in time? Like what direction are they headed? But very clearly, it feels like they're headed in the wrong direction under Todd Bowles. So, yeah, we'll never know what would have happened had Liam Cohen not disappeared in the night to Jacksonville, because I know that's probably a lot of Bucs fans thinking to themselves, we could have had that guy, even though you would have had no idea that he was actually going to be this solid a head coach, at least right now. It could always end up being a disaster later on in Jacksonville. Right now, looking pretty good.
NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
What a game we have upon us in Week 18. It is the Seattle Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Corbin, between our crossovers. In fact, it feels like in the offseason we talk more recent than we do between a Week 1 and a Week 18 crossover. It was the 49ers who beat the Seahawks 17-13 in Week 1. And what a season of ups and downs it has been to lead us to this Week 18 matchup where the winner will win the NFC West. The winner will have 1 seed in the NFC and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And for the 49ers, Corbin, potentially just staying home the whole time, because guess what? The Super Bowl's in their stadium at Levi's. And man, to be honest with you, we might not be done, because we might get a third version of this either in Seattle or at Levi's with the 49ers and the Seahawks again sometime in the playoffs. But I can't wait for this one. What is the big storyline right now in Seattle leading up to this Week 18 matchup?
The big storyline is, can Sam Darnold deliver in his golden moment? Because last year he had a very similar situation with the Minnesota Vikings and wasn't quite able to get it done. But nobody thought he could beat the Rams, and he got that dragon slayed a few weeks ago. And this has been such a weird year for Seattle because the offense is still a top 5 scoring offense, but it hasn't felt like it because they've had so many first halves in the last 2 months that they've just kind of been dormant. And then in the second half, they come out and they suddenly look up. It's like, oh, they scored 27 points somehow in this game. And that's just kind of the way the season has been for the Seahawks. And when your defense is as good as what Seattle's is, you put up 27, you're going to win the vast majority of your games. But the eyes are going to be on Sam Darnold in this one against one of his former teams. And obviously, he wasn't a starter with San Francisco, but an opportunity to beat the guy that he has talked about learning so much from, being Brock Purdy, of all people, a chance to beat him this time when he got inside the 20, and then fumbled at the end of the first matchup. And like you said, it feels like the Jacob Hollister, a deck of cards away from the goal line game, was more recent than week 1.
Yeah.
Like it just feels like it's been a long time since these two teams played.
Look, I'm glad you brought up that Thursday nighter with the Seahawks and the Rams, because I know that 49ers and Seahawks fans love to hate on each other and love to argue, and I'm sure they're at it in the YouTube comments. If you are listening or watching this podcast, you can probably go watch the comments and see what's happening there. But can we at least all agree for a minute that the Rams are overrated, right? They were the 1 seed. Come on, they're 3rd place in the NFC West, very likely.
And they can still win the whole dang thing. Like, that's the thing. All 3 of these teams could be holding up a Lombardi trophy.
It's funny because if you're not watching, you don't see the smile on my face. I'm very much joking about that. This is wide open. This is crazy. I can't remember a year where 1 through 7 in the NFC, 1 through 7 in the AFC. This is wide open. It could be any team. I don't know who has the advantage here. I don't know who has the advantage Sunday with the 49ers, or Saturday, with the 49ers and the Seahawks. We were trying to think about this, and we were talking about the heater that which is the story, if you're talking about biggest storylines with the 49ers right now, is how good the offense is playing, and Brock Purdy accounting for 10 touchdowns, 8 throwing, 2 rushing in the last 2 weeks, 11 touchdowns if you want to talk about the pick 6 he threw to start the game against the Chicago Bears, which the 49ers were able to come back from. The story with the 49ers, how good Brock Purdy is playing, and how, despite how weird the season has gone and all the players missing from the 49ers, then you add on to it George Kittle and Trent Williams, and they still put up 42 points on the Chicago Bears in week 17. It's really been insane. There's no excuses for how good Brock Purdy has been playing recently. And we were talking about this yesterday on Locked On 49ers, Corbin, about, okay, well, man, Sam Darnold's had such a great year, but does he have so much to prove to go win a game like this and go win late in the season? And we're trying to asked the question, it was like, well, okay, what's the biggest game that Sam Darnold has won? This would clearly be the biggest. What's the biggest game that Sam Darnold's won in his entire career? Because Brock Purdy's been to a Super Bowl. And for Sam Darnold, it probably was a couple of weeks ago on Thursday, right? Is that the biggest win in Sam Darnold's career? Because he's still not going to shake that monkey off his back. That was a big win for him, but he's got to win some more.
Yeah, you're making a really good point. Until he's done what Brock Purdy has done, and he has led a team on a playoff race and multiple wins in the postseason, people are going to be skeptical. And I completely understand it. Look, we talked about this on our Seahawks squad show earlier in the week, that, you know, and I know there's going to be some 49ers fans that don't agree with me on this, and that's okay. That's what makes this fun. I think when Sam Darnold is playing at his absolute best, he has a higher ceiling than Brock Purdy. And it's not saying, that's not taking shots at Brock Purdy. It's just Sam Darnold was a top 3 pick for a reason. Like, the guy's got a howitzer on him, and he can just make jaw-dropping plays that you're just like, whoa.
The problem is he also could turn around and throw 4 picks in a game, as we saw him do against the Rams this year. His floor is much lower than what Brock Purdy is. There's just on the erratic spectrum. I call it the Corbin Smith erratic spectrum for QBs. Yes. He's got one of the widest spectrums you're going to have. Now, he has spent most of this season on the right side of that, which is why Seattle's got a chance to get a 14-3 record this season. But there's no question, because of that erratic play and the fact that he played for the New York Jets, at this point, I don't know if you could put prime Peyton Manning on the New York Jets and he could be good. Like, they just cannot do anything with quarterbacks. But Sam Darnold has not had that opportunity, very many opportunities to play in games like this. This is probably the biggest game he's ever gotten to play in his career. Considering who's on the other sideline and getting thrust into this rivalry that is very much alive and well. So, yeah, this is easily his biggest game. And I can make an argument, even with Brock Purdy being to a Super Bowl and would have been to a second one potentially without an injury his rookie year. But, like, I can make an argument this is the biggest regular season game that Brock Purdy's ever played in part because they're playing the Seahawks and they're playing a defense, no offense to the Chicago Bears, but the Bears gave up 42 points to Joe Flacco earlier this year. Yeah. And this defense that Seattle has is not the Chicago Bears defense, and it's not close. So I think from that perspective that, this might be the biggest regular season game that Brock Purdy's ever played.
I think it is. I go back to Brock Purdy's rookie season, and the second game he ever played in the NFL was at home with Tom Brady, the prodigal son, coming back to to play against his childhood team. And by the end of the game, the entire stadium, like Brock Purdy's dad, is in the crowd with tears running down his face. The entire stadium is chanting Brock Purdy's name as he beats Tom Brady. Who comes back home. Like, that was a really big game, but the consequences of that game, I think, are dwarfed by the consequences of this game, because this game is worth 2 wins, because you get a free pass into the second round of the playoffs if you win this game and home field. So this is absolutely a huge football game. I can't wait to watch this one.